Okay, quick question. If I asked you what the most important day on the entire Jewish calendar is, what would you say? Shabbat. That's it, Shabbat? That's what you got? No. Oh, who said today? Today. The most important day is always today. You know me well enough to know those words would never come out of my mouth. I don't remember, most people don't say Shabbat, you know. Most people say Yom Kippur. I don't remember the first time I heard one of my teachers, I think it was in my homiletics class, probably Rabbi David Wolpe said, you know, the most important day of the Jewish year is not Yom Kippur, it's the day after. And, you know, we were all like, ha ha ha. No, it's not. But maybe it is. I don't know. Because Sukkot, without doubt in our tradition, is the most important of the three pilgrimage festivals. Passover, when we escaped from Egypt, Shavuot, when we received Torah, and then Sukkot, which is really connected to all of it, but not any one thing. And so I want to quickly ask and then answer that question from the perspective of the Torah omitting something from the Passover holiday. One of the very early compilations of Midrash notices that atamotze shalosh smachot ketiv bechag, that for Sukkot you see the word sameach 3 different times in the Torah, the commandment to be happy, zman simchatenu, v'samachta bechagecha. That's specific to Sukkot, even though we sing it for all 3 of the Shalosh Regalim. They also noticed that for the holiday of Shavuot, the word sameach comes up only once, v'samachta lifnei Adonai Elohecha, in the book of Deuteronomy. And then they noticed for the holiday of Passover, the commandment to be happy comes up no times at all. It's not there. Why is that? They are all pilgrimage festivals. They are all agricultural festivals. Remember, at Passover, judging for what's going to happen over the next harvest begins, or spring comes and we plant. And the barley harvest begins and we start to bring that harvest to the temple, but on Shavuot, we really get the grain harvest. And then on Sukkot, the rest of the fruit harvest comes along and essentially the season of harvest ends. So here are 2 quick explanations that the rabbis offer us for why Pesach is missing something. The first is that it's not appropriate to celebrate on a day in which we are being judged. It's why there's no Hallel on Rosh Hashanah, because it's a judgment period. The spring holiday, Passover, is when we're worried. Will this be a season that produces enough crops to feed the population? So we're not happy yet. The Torah was right to not say sameach. It also says historically, or whatever this is when we talk about things that happened in the Torah, we'll call it historical for the purposes of this sermon, Bishvil shemetu bo hamitzriim, because it's a holiday that also has a massive death toll of Egyptians that goes along with it. Therefore, one cannot be happy. This is early rabbinic midrash, not Aaron Alexander speaking. And that is why we don't say the Hallel service we said today in full on Passover for all 7 days, but we do on Sukkot. Then they say, well, yeah, but Shavuot gets the word happy in it, and the reason is because the wheat harvest has begun. There is a reason to allow our happiness to start to consume us. Well, why does Sukkot have 3? They ask. Well, the wheat harvest, the fruit harvest, and we made it out of Yom Kippur, patur, or alive. So the Torah, because there are 3 reasons to be happy on Sukkot, names those 3 reasons as both harvests, and we survived Yom Kippur. We made it. That's one explanation. Here is what I find to be an even more compelling explanation. It is from the great 17th, 18th century rabbi, the Chatam Sofer, Rabbi Moses Schreiber, or Moses Sofer. He said, Ki ein simcha lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu ele al yedei simchat ha'aniyim ha'umalalim, that God cannot be happy until the poor who are despairing are happy. Va'al ken bePesach lo ketiv simcha klal. So on Pesach, we don't say anything about happiness. Why? Because even though shem'achil ha'aniim u'mismacham, even though we do bring in the poor on Passover, we try to feed as many people as possible, their hearts aren't actually uplifted. Why? Because they have to go home at the end of the night. And when they go home at the end of the night, what do they have? Nothing, or not enough. So it's good to bring people in, but recognize when you're sending them out, God is not going to be happy just because we fed somebody once. It's not enough. It's not enough. Shavuot, happiness begins because once the wheat harvest starts, what else happens in an agricultural Jewish community in antiquity? We start carving out the corners of our fields for the poor to come take so that they can begin to bring food back into their own homes. The harvest season, or the summer harvest, is the beginning of sustainability for those who are usually set aside to the margins of any community. And so the Torah offers one sameach. You shall be happy on this festival because God can be happy on this festival, because those who have been marginalized can begin to see a little bit of happiness. Thank you for the peah, the corners of the fields that will be set out for them. But Sukkot, the full harvest has happened. So the Chatam Sofer says, "B'Sukkot kavar asaf mikol hatvuot mikol haperot u'maaser ani bishnat ha'maaser." All of the tithes are present after Sukkot. Every available amount of food exists, in theory, for those who are in need to take. Az eyesh lo beveto al rov hashana. And what would happen in antiquity is the poor would store up for the entire year. Now, hu rak sameach bli tsev b'da'aga. Happiness can occur without that same anxiety as to where the next meal will come from. And that is why the Torah says sameach 3 times for Sukkot, and that is why it says ach sameach. One must be happy. I'm going to say 2 things about this. One, this text is not, at least in the way that we would understand it today, talking about the working poor. This is talking about people for whom society has shut them out to the extent that they truly don't know where the next bill to be paid will come from, or food to be had will emerge. And that until society can reach a point, like biblical society tried to do, in which that is in fact the case, there will always be tears taken from the cup of wine for a diminishment in God's seeing humanity thrive. The goal is to get to Sukkot. Why is Sukkot the most important day of the year? Because after our cups are filled up on Yom Kippur with the good feeling of making it through atonement, we are asked to go right outside, start building a sukkah so that we can be ready for the holiday in which ideally everybody will begin to be taken care of for the winter to come. The most important day of the year is the day after Yom Kippur, because if we fill ourselves up with our harvest, both spiritually and physically, but then turn back inward, we have missed the entire point of what Yom Kippur was trying to nudge us towards. And the last thing I'll say is this Sukkot, we are much closer to being sameach, to being happy, because those, aniim ha'umalalim, those who have been left in the dungeons of Gaza, will come home on this holiday, God willing. And the Sukkot and the Simchat Torahs, the last ones that have been taken, that have had the happiness just decreased While this war has been going on and our hostages have been in captivity, and Palestinians in Gaza have been experiencing trauma after trauma, because as long as that was going on, the Torah got it right. We weren't going to get to God's happiness and our happiness, and God willing, these last 2 days of Sukkot, we will be able to experience the Torah as it was intentionally given to us at Sinai. Shabbat Shalom. Modim l'simcha.